All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Diabetes Talk. I'm your host, Charlie O'Connell. We are broadcasting live from New Haven across the world. We just finished an amazing GLUCOSEZONE abs workout. I want to thank everybody who joined us. Guys, we had people in the GLUCOSEZONE from the Philippines, India, Utah, the West Coast, right here in Connecticut. It was really a fantastic global experience, and I want to encourage you, if you haven't joined us yet for one of our live workouts before our diabetes talk, get in the GLUCOSEZONE, guys. It's a lot of fun, and you basically experience an incredible community of people that are willing to do what it takes to take the fight to diabetes. All right. Donny Ray is in the house on YouTube, and Donny Ray, guys, first off, Donny Ray was with us for the ab workout. Donny Ray has been kicking diabetes butt, and Donny Ray shared something with me that was so profound. And Donny Ray, I want to thank you on the air for sending me just a tiny bit of your journey, okay? And it's been such an honor to be a small part in your success, and I cannot wait for other people to be inspired by you. And when you're ready to start letting other people know, we are ready to start sharing your story, okay? And it truly is an amazing story, and I cannot wait to help you share that story. It's awesome. Sue722 is with us on Instagram, okay? Jeanette is here, guys. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and in the GLUCOSEZONE app. And I want to say what's up to Veronica joining us in the app, and Olga, who joined us in the app for that awesome workout. Okay, so today's topic, guys, is food, family, and faith, okay? And how to have success dealing with these springtime holidays, and basically the challenge of being a person living with diabetes and dealing with some very challenging circumstances. And I'm not just talking about the Easter egg bunny hunt, okay? I'm talking about all of the things that come with the celebration of faith holidays, which is a combination of family, it's a combination of food, it is a combination of reflection, okay? And sometimes it can be a very emotional time, all right? And we're going to talk about practical ways to handle that situation in a very positive way, okay? And we're not really going to talk about any particular faith per se. We're just more talking about, guys, how to handle this combination that we all deal with, all right? So the first thing is, if you have an upcoming holiday, whether it is Passover or Easter or whatever, okay, something that you can do that's very positive is, on the day of the celebration, exercise early in the morning, okay? And whether that's going for a walk, whether that's taking your dog on a hike, whether that's doing a GLUCOSEZONE workout, get exercise early in the morning. The exercise early in the morning will increase your sensitivity to insulin that day. And if you are a person that is basically celebrating your faith with a large food celebration, which is like me, for example, and I'm going to use some personal anecdotes tonight, getting exercise in the morning is a key thing for me, so that when I do participate in family food events, the food itself, the impact of the food on my blood sugar is lessened. Okay? Now, the second thing is eat breakfast. Now, why do I say that? So I'm going to use a personal anecdote here. So I we do a big Easter celebration with my family, and basically, usually the way that it goes is we have something called Easter dinner, all right? And Easter dinner is not dinner, actually. It usually happens between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you guys know that eating a large meal at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon is one of the hardest, most frustrating experiences living with diabetes, okay? Because it totally throws off what you're used to. So one way that you can deal with that is to make sure that you have breakfast, okay? Having breakfast will do two things. The first thing it will do is it will save you from being totally starving by the time you get to 2 or 3 o'clock, okay? And that's an important thing, because as you get hungrier and hungrier, it's harder and harder to control your portions. The second thing is it will help you with your actual blood sugar management, because what you can be susceptible to is if you don't have breakfast and you go all the way through the morning, then past the normal lunchtime, and then you finally get to the meal, okay? The likelihood that your blood sugar levels are normal is going to be very low, because when you're living with diabetes, you definitely have to have some regimen with your food and timing, okay? Especially if you are taking insulin or if you are taking medications that have certain timing release patterns. So all of those things factor into a really, really great practical suggestion of eat breakfast, okay? It'll make such a difference. Now, my recommendation would be the following order. My recommendation would be wake up early, have your green juice, then go get exercise, okay? And get a great exercise session in. Get an exercise session in that builds your confidence, that makes you feel proud, and basically is something that you can check off spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, and physically as an accomplishment. Then come back and take a shower, do whatever you need to do, then have breakfast, okay? If you follow that formula, you will set yourself up for success with actually managing a mid-afternoon meal. Okay? All right. Now, let's talk about now strategies for after the meal. Okay? And I'm going to break this down into people who are taking insulin and people who are not taking insulin. So, let's start with people who are not taking insulin. If you are a person living with diabetes and you're not taking insulin, then one of the best things you can do to prevent excursions in glucose from big meals is to go for a walk after your meal, all right? And that's a recommendation that's made from all kinds of people, okay? All kinds of established diabetes authorities is go for a walk after a meal. All right, now, before I go any longer, we do have a special guest here joining us tonight, and it's my daughter, Ella. So I want to say what's up, Ella. I see you, and it's great to have you here, guys. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky. We're talking about family tonight. I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. My daughter, Ella, 1.5-year-old, is watching with Grandma tonight. Ella, I see you, and it's great to have you here, and I love you, okay? All right, now, so getting back to this recommendation of going for a walk. If you are not taking insulin, going for a walk after a meal, okay, is a fantastic suggestion to control it's called glycemic excursions, okay? So basically what that means is a spike in your blood sugar levels after you eat. And a great way that you can control spikes in your glucose levels after you eat is to go for a walk. Now, here's the hard part about that, okay? The hard part about that is if you are taking insulin, do not go for a walk immediately after eating a big meal. And the reason why that is for the same exact reason where somebody who is not taking insulin should use exercise to reduce the spike in glucose levels. For that same exact reason, if you're a person that's taking insulin, you cannot go for a walk right after a meal, or else you'll put yourself at risk for hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. And there is no worse feeling for somebody living with diabetes than having a stomach full of food and being hypoglycemic. That is a terrible, terrible feeling. So you want to avoid that. And you want to basically follow the 2-hour rule. And what the 2-hour rule is, if you've injected fast-acting insulin, you want to wait at least 2 hours before actually doing any physical activity. All right? And that really, really makes a big difference. All right, now, I got to stop again, and I got to say what's up to my other daughter, Violet. You guys know if you say hello to one daughter, the other one needs to hear hello too. So Violet, I see you. I'm so glad that you're here and watching Daddy tonight, okay? And I love you. All right, now, what I just explained, guys, is such an important thing to differentiate. And it's so frustrating for people who don't have diabetes, people who don't understand the different types of diabetes. It can become so confusing. So I want to encourage, and that can include your family members, okay, for sure. And don't hold your family members accountable for that. That's a really, really important thing here, guys, is you know how confusing diabetes is. Most of us are confused by diabetes, and we have diabetes. So imagine how confusing it can be for people who don't have diabetes. So try not to get frustrated. Try not to get an attitude with your family member who basically says something that's inappropriate or doesn't understand how you manage your diabetes. It's really, really not their fault, because the bottom line is diabetes is confusing. All right? Okay, let me stop right there. We've got a ton of people joining us on Facebook that I want to say what's up to. My Cooch has joined us. My Sudanese friend, it is good to see you. Gene Brooks is here with us. Gene and Keith, I hope you guys are doing great. Amy Williams has joined. Amy Williams is a great friend and a coach, a fitness expert. Okay, Grandma Kate is here. It is great to have you here. Okay, and on YouTube, we've been joined by Lana. Okay, we've been joined by Dottie. And by the way, guys, let me just stop right there. Dottie was with us earlier for our GlucoseZone workout. She shared with the group that the combination of green juicing and working out in the GlucoseZone, she was able to achieve 20 pounds of weight loss, which is so awesome, Dottie. And I'm so glad that you shared that with the group, okay? Because it tells people that this is possible, all right? And you don't know who you might have just inspired. We're also joined by Jason Geller. Jason, is great to have you here. And Jason, guys, we were very lucky. We got some great coverage in the news the other day in the Hartford Courant. Check it out. There's a great article about GlucoseZone that really, really went in depth. You guys will see the behind the scenes of how this whole GlucoseZone operation works. Okay? All right. Now, so, Gene just brought up, right, putting together your Easter plan. So, and I celebrate Easter too, so we can use that as an example. But guys, this really applies to any type of family and faith situation that you might be dealing with. So, understanding these rules, understanding these practical tips goes a long way. So again, when it comes to a post-meal exercise, if you do not take insulin, that's a great suggestion. That can help with controlling spikes in glucose levels after a big meal. If you do take insulin, be very, very careful with that and allow yourself to let the insulin that you've actually administered to yourself run its course before you go for exercise. Because if you don't do that, you're going to run the risk of hypoglycemia. And in my case, guys, this is one of the reasons why I like to exercise beforehand. I really, really love to exercise beforehand because it increases my sensitivity to insulin. I know that when I'm eating later on, the food that I'm eating, much more likely that it's going to go to filling up my muscles and not stuffing my fat cells, right? And that feels great, okay? And I like to eat, okay? Everybody likes to eat. Okay, now, the next one, okay, is test your blood sugar frequently throughout the day. And the value, again, I use a continuous glucose monitor, which is a recent thing for me, guys. It's been very, very valuable to me. I recommend that you ask your doctor to prescribe you one, okay? But if you don't have a CGM, that's okay. I still want you to be testing your blood sugar frequently, okay? Because it's going to clue you into the right time to exercise. It's going to clue you into what foods you can and cannot eat. Okay? Now, another suggestion, this is specifically for people who are on an insulin pump. There's something called an extended bolus setting. And basically what an extended bolus setting can do is help you manage high fat, high carb meals, right? And basically what that means is high fat, high carb meals tend to cause an extended release of glucose into your system for longer than 2 hours. And so their insulin pumps have settings, okay? Insulin pumps have settings that you can actually basically do what's called an extended release, which is you give yourself a little bit of insulin, then a little bit more of insulin. And if you're on injections like me, you want to follow the same formula. You may want to consider, so I'll give you an example. When I sit down for Easter dinner, I'll give myself insulin for the dinner, and then I'll actually give myself insulin 2 to 3 hours later. Of course, testing my blood sugar in between. But the reason why I'm doing that is I know I've consumed a lot, so my quantities have been large, and the actual food itself usually is high fat, high carb. Okay? And there are many nutritious foods that are high fat, high carb. All right? Okay. The next one. This is a great suggestion. This is one of the best suggestions. And this is a suggestion that basically I would recommend at all meals, but especially when you're dealing with big family meals, is fill half of your plate with vegetables and salad. Just as a rule. Fill half your plate with vegetables and salad. And if you do that, first off, you're going to be able to eat more. Okay? Second off, you are going to fill your stomach up with healthy vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, the things that your body actually needs, and it's much less likely that you're going to be tempted to over-consume foods that basically have high calorie and high macronutrients, right? And these are little practical tips, okay? Practical tips that make a huge, huge difference. All right. The next thing is, okay, first off, Sherlyn, okay? Sherlyn, I'm so glad that you've joined us here on Facebook, okay? And I'm happy that these talks are helping you learn about diabetes and how insulin and exercise works, okay? That it's so encouraging to us guys when we hear from you guys and you let us know that what we are sharing is of value. It really, really does make a big difference, and I appreciate you saying that. Okay? Now, we've got another great suggestion from Amy Williams, and what she just shared was smaller plates work to keep down portion size. That is such a great suggestion. So, there's two kinds of plates that you can have. You can have the big, ginormous platter, right, which enables you to put everything on the plate all at once. Or you can go with the regular size plates, or even the smaller, right, almost like hors d'oeuvre size plates. That is such a great suggestion to keep the portion sizes down. Because the reality is, guys, if you do a normal or even smaller portion and you eat it, you can actually enjoy it. And you just take a breath, basically, and usually what will happen is the kind of craving, the impulse reaction to wolf down the food will be less. All right, so those two things, make sure half your plate is vegetables and salad. And number two, actually look at the size of the plates and try to use smaller size plates. All right, now, the next one, eat slowly, is a great suggestion. But if you are a person that's taking insulin, be conscious of the insulin that you've injected. So one of the most challenging aspects of participating in a celebration meal, okay, is when the food comes out too slowly. So it's like they bring out like the first course, and then like a half an hour goes by, okay, and everybody's drinking wine. And basically, you're starting to get nervous because if you're taking insulin, you've injected insulin, and that's like a ticking time bomb that's going on in your body. So if that is the case for you, it is very important that you communicate to your family members, or if you're having food at a restaurant, you communicate to the restaurant that you can't play that game. And the reason why I'm saying that is, especially at restaurants, a lot of the atmosphere can be built up around extending the time of the meal. And you just have to be straight up and communicate to the restaurateur. Say, look, bring the food now. Okay? Bring the food now. I don't want to play the game of first course now, second course half an hour later, and the actual meal an hour from when you sat down. That's very, very frustrating, especially if you're doing an afternoon meal. Okay. Now, talking about alcohol consumption. So, if you're on insulin or a hypoglycemic agent, right, the first thing is you should talk to your healthcare provider about how those medications interact with alcohol. Okay? But generally speaking, the recommendation is if you are drinking, make sure that you are consuming food with the alcohol. All right? And what's very interesting about alcohol is alcohol can have two effects on your blood sugar. The first potential negative effect that alcohol can have on your blood sugar is if you are taking a hypoglycemic agent or taking insulin, you run the risk of low blood sugar while you're drinking. And here's the reason why. What alcohol actually does is alcohol temporarily disables your liver's ability to release stored sugar into your bloodstream. And that can lead to a hypoglycemic event. Your liver is naturally designed to be releasing small amounts of sugar into your blood throughout the day. When you consume alcohol, the liver actually temporarily stops that process, stops releasing sugar. So you need to make sure that you're eating. And for people with type 1 diabetes, this is a very, very important thing, okay? For people with type 2 diabetes and people with type 1 diabetes, there's a flip side on that. And the flip side on that is if you are consuming alcohol that has a high sugar content. So alcohol that has a high sugar content are any molasses-based alcohol. So any type of rum or brandy or whiskey, anything like that, okay? You want to be careful with. That can actually really, really raise your blood sugar. Any type of mixed drink can really, really raise your blood sugar very quickly. So you want to be conscious of those things, okay? And ultimately, alcohol is sugar. So what ends up happening with alcohol in many cases is while you are consuming the alcohol in the moment, if you are on insulin or a hypoglycemic agent, you can run the risk of low blood sugar. But the latter effect is actually the exact opposite, a spike in your glucose levels. Okay? All right. Now, the last thing, guys, I want to just share with you. So, okay, we got a great question from Sue722. Let me answer this question. So, Sue asked about wine. So, red wine, okay, tends to have a glucose lowering effect. White wine tends to have a spiking effect. So you want to be very conscious of the type of wine that you are drinking. And of course, your personal experience needs to be factored in here, but generally speaking, red wine actually can lower blood sugar levels or have that kind of temporary lowering effect, whereas white wine can usually or sometimes will have the opposite effect. It'll spike your blood sugar very quickly, right? Okay, last thing I want to talk about, guys, is understanding that food consumption, okay, really, really plays a huge role in your spiritual, mental, and intellectual fitness, okay? And it's amazing how our food choices can actually influence how we feel about ourselves, right? And we talk a lot about different types of foods, okay? We talk about green juicing a lot. We talk about reading food labels, okay? There's one thing that I want to share I want to share with those of us that are celebrating Easter is there's an amazing passage in the New Testament about Easter. And what it is the following phrase, okay? And what the following phrase is, not with the old leavened bread of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. And what that passage is such an amazing passage because what it's tying is leavened bread. So guys, what leavened bread is basically processed bread. Okay? Leavened bread is basically white bread. Okay? Not with the leavened bread of malice and wickedness. So it's basically tying this connection between processed food and malice and wickedness in your spiritual fitness and comparing that directly to unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. What unleavened bread is sprouted grain bread. Bread that is actually living. And the way that you know what the difference between leavened and unleavened bread is when you go to the supermarket, leavened bread is available on the shelf. Unleavened bread is available only in the freezer section because it has to be kept in the freezer section because it is actually alive. Okay? It is a live, perishable food. And I just want you to let that sink in for a second. And I want you to think about when and if you are consuming grains, when and if you are consuming bread, I want to ask you to consider, why am I not consuming unleavened, healthy, sprouted grain food? Okay, and make that connection. Make that connection between spiritual fitness, okay, and your physical fitness, because the reality is they're one and the same. It is very, very hard to be physically fit and spiritually unfit. It's very, very hard to be spiritually fit and physically unfit. Okay? So these are deep, deep things, guys, that really, really require you to be honest with yourself. Managing diabetes can be really, really hard when it comes to food, family, and faith. But I want to encourage you, there are very practical things that you can do to make the experience better for you. It starts with being honest with yourself. It definitely includes fitness, okay? And ultimately, it basically ends with you being honest with yourself in what is good for you and not judging yourself or judging anybody else based on what you can and can't eat, based on what you can and can't drink, okay? And based on basically what you can and cannot participate in. All right? So, on that note, guys, we're going to end. That was a great, great session. We had a ton of people joining us on Facebook, a ton of people joining us on YouTube and on Instagram too. I want to thank you guys so much. Okay, I want to wish everybody have a great weekend, and I can't wait to see you guys in the Glucose Zone.